and then on chapters 8, and then we'll have time the rest of the time for our breakout groups for our group activity, our group assignment, so that you guys can work in your group and kind of finalize some things and make sure that everybody's ready, because this will be the last time that we'll be able to use class time in order to meet with our groups. All right. Um, so that's the plan for the evening. I am with, and there was a couple of people that were absent. Stephanie, are you here? Let me see. Did I see Stephanie come in? Not yet. And Kylie, did you come in already? Nope, not yet. Okay. So we have those two people that are absent. Hopefully that we don't have the same people that were not able to make it last time, so that you can meet with your groups and be able to, definitively decide what is who's working on what and your topic. So today's um, lecture is going to cover, some of the things that you need to do for this group assignment, like how to go about putting everything in order, giving some samples of things, giving some samples of some titles of different small group themes and at the different levels. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. Okay, so Chapter 8 kind of goes into creative strategies with group counseling and just how to put the different group activities together to make it engaging, enthusiastic. The the book went over using improv. Improv is one of the ways to do it. A lot of kids love doing role plays, no matter what age they are, just kind of acting things out, getting them up, moving them around, so that they're also moving around as well as being able to engage and learn in the different, as you're trying to teach them what you need to teach them, the skill sets that you need to teach them. So the book goes into games, charades, different things that you can do. So keep that in mind as you're building some of the simple things that you can do. And then, our kids are techies today. So some of those things, they may not be as good. You kind of have to take a look at your group. Are they actors? And what I noticed is I went from having students who love to draw to students who love to act things out. So I kind of put role plays into the majority of my group sessions. So because they love to get up and act out a situation. So, and that helped them, like if they saw something on the yard and then I had cards and they were acting out, what would you do in that situation? And then they kind of acted things out. So role playing is a great strategy. So, in our multi-tiered systems of support, with our counseling service delivery, we've been talking about tier two. Tier two is where our small groups come into play. And so in our tier one, we are doing everything for everyone. So that also, it can be a classroom lesson, and we'll talk about a couple of those things, themes that come up in there. This is also a lot of times we forget to put college and career into our tier one section. And in our tier one section, it's not necessarily these are the individual student plannings from grade 6 to 12. These are our district school-wide activities, and then our district core curriculums, if you have any core curriculums. Like, for example, we use Second Step as our core curriculum, and teachers teach that. Therefore, counselors don't teach that. That's just an SEL strategy that we use in our district. And so that's the reference that we have, that they do it once a week in all grade levels, from big, and with that, we know we can tell our parents that students are receiving SEL in the classroom with the teachers and class lessons so that and class meetings so that they're able to address those social emotional concerns that do come up. Um, so this is the part of the ASCA model where we are delivering our services. So we have assessing, managing, and defining, and this is our delivery of services. We do it because it's equitable for all students. So when we are choosing, we're using the data that we collect from our various sources, whether it's grades, whether it is a healthy kids survey, whether it's your bully proof prevention survey that you give out annually, just whatever survey that you give to your students, this is where you're looking at, okay, do the students need more reinforcement in that social emotional area? And so we're focusing on data driven. So we have our three areas that we focus on: college and career, academics, and then social emotional, right? So and this is the way that we are saying when anyone asks us the question, how did you design the lessons? Why did you choose to do that particular lesson? You're using the data that you collected, saying, okay, after giving this particular survey, which was an anonymous survey that we gave to all grade levels. Now, our bully prevention survey, we give it to grades 3, 4, and 5. And so when we give it to 3, 4, and 5, if we find that there's a strong lesson there, then we that's when I create my classroom lessons and then what's going to happen next. Also, we gave out our Healthy Kids survey, and the results came back already from the Healthy Kids survey that I distributed to our fifth grade students. And the Healthy Kids survey is one of those surveys that we give out to fifth, seventh, and 11th in all California schools. And our survey indicated that many of our students felt alone. So I passed on this information to my middle school counselors because all of my fifth grade students, over 30% of the fifth grade students felt alone and that they had no friends. So this is something that obviously my middle school counselors need because they're getting a group 30% of my 100. And then if they look at the Healthy Kids survey from the other two core elementary schools that they feed into, they can design what they need to address immediately with those sixth graders as incoming students. Okay. And then this is how we are going to write our goals as a counseling goal. So we wanted to increase our high school graduation rate from this by a certain percentage from this percentage to that percentage, or decrease a suspension rate from by this percentage from this percentage to that. And then there's also other examples that we can give. And then this is where we write our counseling goal. Like this is why we are saying our counseling lessons will help the LCAP goals by us doing X, Y, and Z with counseling. And then we measure whether we were successful with that. If we were successful, or if it needs to change, or if we made part of the goal, but not all of the goal, then maybe what was it? Did I not spend enough time with that group? Did I need to do more lessons? Would more lessons have been more effective? You know, what do I need to do? And this is how we keep our services within the school district. Because if we don't show that counseling services are helping to increase graduation rate, suspension, decrease in suspension rate, increase in attendance, decrease in an increase in knowledge of college and career, increase in grades, then we're not showing how our counseling is working in the schools. Okay. So what comprises the 80% versus the 20% of any core curriculum? So every student needs to develop. And so it doesn't matter with what their SES is or if they breathe. These are the things, this is the 80%. So these are the themes that we use for all students: transitioning to middle or high school or post-secondary, college and career, exploration, skills for learning, empathy, emotional management, and problem solving. Take a look at those, kind of jot something down that comes out to you. These are great things to address you can address this in classroom lessons, or you can address this in small group. These are actual um, titles that you can use. And then some examples of the 20%, which is based on a specific need at your school site and based on the assessment and the data or your surveys, is like empathy lessons because of cyberbullying at the school, grief and loss. Um, and then education pays, which is high percent of first generation for our high school students. So why we need education. So these are some examples, and this is what you're going to be filling out on that lesson plan. So that lesson plan, and these are just examples. So for a social skills lesson, and this is a tier one, and I'll get to the tier two examples, but a social skills lesson would be peacemaking, and then your evaluation would be a protective factors index. Um, how many lessons? Five. And then you would do it in the first quarter. And those are the ASCA mindsets and behavior standards that it would cover. Skipping down to middle school, respect and conflict resolution. Those are your ASCA mindsets. They're going to use the steps to respect curriculum because that's our core curriculum. And then your pre and post tests and your disciplinary referrals or your evaluations, like how you choose to put the students or how you choose to do the small groups. And then in ninth or 12th, developing relationships is the theme, either navigating high school relationships or developing healthy adult relationships. Those are the ASCA mindsets and behavior standards. And then the counselor is going to create it. So that's going to be counselor created. So you'll pull from different areas. Maybe there's a couple of things on books on navigating relationships in high school, how do you know when a friend is a friend? If they're good friends, developing healthy relationship, when to end a relationship, that can go into with 12th grade, that goes into dating, etc. So then you would start with, developing those healthy relationships, how to choose them, what happens when something goes wrong. And I see two people are waiting. I'm so sorry. Give me a second. Okay. So when and then the next lesson three might be something about all about, negative relationships and then positive relationships or dating, you know, um, how to break up, how to end a relationship peacefully. So that I've named about five different lessons that you would place in that developing healthy relationships. Um, Again, this is college and career wellness awareness, and then social emotional strong feelings. Second step. Again, these are still tier one examples. And when you take a look at this chart, and this is for grade one, this is something that you like, it tells you when and where you would do it. College and career is going to be March through May. Here's the ask a mindsets. Here's the pre and post. Everything has to have a pre and post. Now, because we're going to do a series from March to May, you'll do a pre test and then you'll do a post test. Sometimes the pre and post is the exact same. So you want to see what they knew beforehand and then what do they remember after you taught them that lesson. So just keep that in mind because pre and post assessments are required for your group lesson that you're putting together, the 8 lessons that you're putting together. So again, you don't have to have a pre and post for each lesson. Let me say that one more time. You don't have to have a pre and post for each lesson. You can do a pre and post test where you give them the pre test for your first lesson, the post test on your 8th lesson. Okay. And then you collect that data because you want to see after you taught them and you came weekly 8 times, how much did they recall? Okay. And then so you go from there. These are just more examples of tier one. Now, when we get here, you can do a feedback tool. And this is just for your students at the end, maybe at the end of every lesson. Like, are you enjoying the lessons? Do I need more hands-on? What would you like to see? Do you need more visuals? These are things that you can add just to get feedback from the students as to who are coming to your lessons. All right, so now we're going into the tier two, which is our small group, which is what we're doing. And we're focusing on in this course, the small group. So our direct services, and I know this will help you as you guys move into your field work and whatnot. Your direct services are your small groups, your large group workshops, your post-discipline, suspension, counseling, re-engagement meetings, restorative justice, conflict mediation, check-in, check-out, individual counseling, short-term, solution focus. So those are all your direct services, right? And then your indirect services are when you're with the adults. Basically, every time you're with a kid, that's your direct services. And then every time you're with other staff members, those are your indirect services. So consultation, collaboration, teacher and student support in the classroom, teacher and staff education, family support education, and referrals to in-school resources. So those are all of your indirect services. And when you are doing when you get to your field work, that's when you are going to be documenting indirect services. So that if you're not clear as to which ones go where, this is what you want to do. And I think you have to have mostly direct services. So that's really important because when you're working at your site, it's very easy for your site supervisor to get you to do the indirect services, call the parents, talk to that because they may have concerns about you being um, doing the direct services, but it's really important that you get out there and do the direct services. And you can do that either with co-counseling, making sure that your supervisor is there with you for maybe if you design a small group and you lead 3 of the lessons and she does the other 3, maybe she would model those first 3 for you, and then the next person, and then you would finish up and design the last 3. So here are some examples of tier 2 interventions, and this is the elementary level. Academic grade report conversations, like, explaining to them the report card, what it means, and how you do it. Promoting promotion groups, attendance workshops, academic tools for success, organization, time management, study skills, test taking strategies. So right there, if you wanted to address academics, say you have a small group that's failing, there's 8 lessons. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 lessons already out of the 8 that you would be comprising for this assignment. So academic tools for success is what you're calling it. And then you're breaking up each one: organization, time management, study skills, and test taking strategies, and you might do 2 on test taking strategies, 2 on study skills, and then 2 on time management. So that might be something that you do. And then that kind of gets you more. Moving on to the social emotional behavior, specific behavior skill groups, healthy relationships, groups provided by community agencies. Sometimes you bring in the mental health outside agencies, check in, check outs, coping workshops, like how to cope with your emotions and putting those in order, and developing social skill awareness and putting those in order. And you can break those out. Equity, we've got newcomer groups, focus groups, LGBTQ groups, special ed talks, LPAC for our English language learners, empowerment groups, and foster support groups. And then for our college and career, we have career exploration by pathways. We have cohort pathway groups, and then we have strength building and for college and career, and mindful messaging for post-secondary planning. And these are some small group interventions. Um, Again, these are different curriculums that exist. So these are all open season. If you want to take a look at some of these, write them down. They may help you and get resources. These are resources for you to help develop your 8 lessons for your group. Okay. Remember that nothing's perfect. So you'll take bits and pieces out of these different curriculums and use. Nothing fits everyone. So there's pros and cons to each one of these. And so, but they're ideas. These are just basic resources. So here's examples for tier 2 for middle and high school. I'm going to show you. Let me stop sharing for a second. All right. I wanted to share with you. So if you decided to do your lesson on college and career, this is for kindergarten. So basically someone created the PowerPoint. And so this is you would attach this to one of the lesson plans. And there's 13 slides, and it has a handout for them. And then it's mostly verbal because, it's for the students. So you have a couple of things that you would teach them. Now, when you're doing your lesson plan, you would talk about what you would say, how you would say it, the materials that you need, and the materials that you need would be this particular college and career PowerPoint. So the PowerPoint needs to be attached to the lesson plan, and it needs to be accessible so that when I'm grading the lesson plan, I click on it and it goes directly to it. You can have links. You don't have to put the PowerPoint in whatever works for you. If you know how to do the links, do the links. If you don't know how to do the links, then go ahead and turn it into an Adobe Acrobat and attach it, with the lesson plan. All right. Tiger Talks was another one. So this is already in Adobe Acrobat format. PDF. So the purpose of Tiger Talks is to help you succeed and pass your class this semester. So this is academic planning. This was in the PowerPoint as one of the strategies for middle and high school. And what you'll know is your current grade, missing work for all the classes, successful strategies, and a plan of attack. So obviously this small group is attacking all the students that are already failing. This is a common thread in middle and high school where we run the students that have all the D's and F's and are not passing those courses and the importance of them. And we teach why it's important. And then they may not know that they're missing this many assignments. And then we sit down and work with them individually and find out why are they missing all of these assignments and what's challenging them. Is it that they forget their work? Is it that there's no one there to check their work? They don't, they're not interested. They don't see the point of it all. But so that's another example of that. Right. Okay, so let's see. So when we're looking for things to use, we want to make sure it's evidence-based so that we understand that we're not create we they've already done the work and the research for us. So these are places where we can find evidence-based curriculums on um, different subject areas. And it'll tell us all about it so that if your district has any questions or concerns as to why you chose that or what did you use? You're getting information and resources that are evidence-based practice. So our small groups are always brief. And so we do 6 to 8 lessons. Most of the time, we don't have time for longer than that. If you kind of know your group, be be very cautious with that because teachers hate when we cancel and we don't come and we don't pull out the students because the students that we need to pull out need our services. And so if we are consistently counseling and they don't get the services, it kind of messes things up. So make sure you do 1 or 2 per week so that you have room on other days to do makeups because we know our districts throw out meetings at the last minute, change things around, you're asked to do other things. So it's important that you get that done, but also you don't want to miss your small group. Um, Allow for innovation and solution focused techniques. Those are things that you can put into your different lessons, um, and integrate counseling techniques through collaboration with the classroom teacher. It's also really good to give the classroom teacher an evaluation form after you've pulled the students out and worked with them. Have the teacher evaluate them in 2 to 3 weeks to see if they see a decrease in social, like if you pulled them out for social emotional learning, do they see that they're engaging? Are they using the strategies that you taught them? And then you should also do a check-in with that small group to check on them, either visit them in the classroom, visit them on the yard to make sure that they're using the strategies that you gave them. Here are different types of groups. Academic support, we talked about that. Emotional awareness and self-regulation skills. Behavior challenges. Career awareness, exploration and planning. Communication, problem solving, conflict resolution, or issues on bullying. Divorce, family separation, or other big changes, including grief or loss. Goal setting, decision making, organization and study skills, peer relationship, and effective social skills. Um, so I want the solution focused therapy is a strength based approach that is based on solution building rather than problem solving. And this is one of our new modern techniques that we use. The therapists believe that change in life is inevitable because someone creates their own reality and they may as well change for the better. So we want to make sure that they focus on the present problem and not get stuck in the past, what's happened in the past. Here's some techniques that you can use with solution focus. Um, Behavior therapy, the miracle question. That miracle question is a technique that therapists use to assist clients into thinking outside the box. It asks the client to consider life without the problem. by setting up a scene where the miracle happens and the problem is gone. So what would it be like? This problem is hindering you, but what would it be like if it's gone tomorrow? And suppose that while you were sleeping that night, and the entire house is quiet, a miracle happens. The miracle is that the problem which brought you here is now solved. But because you're sleeping, you don't know that the miracle has happened. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, what might be the small change that will make you say to yourself, wow, something must have happened. The problem is gone. And so you want them to focus on what's going to make this better if it's gone. Okay. And then this helps the client to kind of think about future possibilities. What's in the future? What can I do? And how do I see my life without the problem? Because a lot of times our clients get stuck in the problems here. It's every day, and I can't move because of the problem. So we want them to think about what would happen when the problem is gone. We also have the exception questions, which allow the clients to identify times when they think when things have been different for them, finding times when the problem wasn't so much of a big problem. Tell me about a time when you felt happiest. What was it about that day that made it a better day? And can you think of a time when the problem was not present in your life? And by exploring these exception, you can empower the client to find a solution. We also have the scaling questions, like on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst and 1 being the best. Where would you put yourself, right now? And then after you do the scaling question, you would ask the client to explain why they chose the number that they did, why the number isn't higher or lower, depending, and then how can they start to move it towards the area where they need it to be. So solution focused is a great strategy to incorporate into our lesson planning because it's only 5 to 8 lessons. So we want to kind of put these strategies in there, especially when we're working individually with our students, because sometimes we go from our small group to individual counseling, especially if somebody doesn't work in a group session. So then we want to make sure that we work with them individually, 5 to 8 sessions. And these are some strategies that we can use to focus on resolutions and help them get where they need to be. Narrative therapy is also another modern therapy. And what you're trying to do is get the client to create a new story about, so that they separate the individual from the problem, and the individual no longer internalizes their issue. And we want them to focus that the problem is the problem and the person isn't the problem. So we want to recreate a story about that. And we're going to help them to design that story. So these are some techniques: telling one's own story, putting together a narrative, finding your voice, and putting the story in your own words. This is called reauthoring. Internalizing, it leads your clients towards viewing the problem or behaviors as internal instead of unchangeable parts of themselves. For example, if you're quick to anger or you consider yourself an angry person, then you must fundamentally change something about yourself to address that problem. However, if you are a person who acts aggressively and angers easily, then you need to alter the situation and behaviors surrounding the problem. There's deconstruction, which is reducing the problem a client is experiencing and making it easier to understand the whole picture. And then there's the position map, which the client writes about characteristics and naming and labeling the problem. So mapping out the effects of the problem through each domain of the life it touches, like homework, school, relationships, etc. And then evaluating the effects of the problem in these domains and then the values that come up when thinking about why these effects are undesirable. Okay. So that's pretty much it for us on focusing on our strategies for small group and where it falls on our domain and all the areas that we need to address. So at this time, I want to ask, does anyone have any questions about the assignment, the group assignment? And where are we now with our group assignment?
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Um, so for my for my group, we decided that we would divide the the assignment. So I'm doing 4 lesson plans, somebody else is doing 4 lesson plans, and then there's 2 other people working on the paper. So I'm confused because if we're creating these lesson plans based on data, what what checkbox would we check off? Is it the best practices or research based?
If you're doing it on data, it would be research based. If you're doing it on like what we just talked about with the tier one, and you're just giving everybody what they need, and you're doing it in small groups, and you're doing like 6 to 10, then it would be best practices.
Okay, would it be the one where it says lesson 5 of 8 or something?
What do you mean? I don't understand your
Okay,
question.
let me go back. Sorry. Okay. Um, oh, evidence based. So, no, just kidding. I'm so sorry. Single classroom lesson. It's not that. It's a small group session lesson, lesson
Yeah.
5 of 8. That would be it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you would be doing five. And remember, you're going to put them in order. So it needs
Right.
to make sense as to the order. So even though someone's doing four, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they did 4 lessons, if you decide that the four, maybe one of yours goes in the four, that's what you guys should work together to rearrange.
Okay. And then, since you showed a slideshow, did you want us to include slides for each lesson?
I can't tell you that. You're going to have to decide that yourself. I can't tell you that because it depends on your age level. It depends on what you're teaching. Everything doesn't need a slideshow. And you don't need to have it. But I mean, thinking of our students and what works for them, we probably do need some visuals or something for them to do. So what I'm grading you on is, you know, um, is this a complete lesson? And when I read it, can I just do the lesson? As experienced as I am, when I read your lesson plan, I should be able to execute it with all the materials right in front of me. I should not have to say, oh, I'm missing this, or I need to get this. Everything that I need for that lesson, I need to take your paper, walk into a room, and be able to do your lesson. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so that's what I'm grading you on. I'm grading you on, did you include all of that? So me looking at it and reading it, I understand it, it makes sense. It it taught a skill set, it retaught the skill set, and then maybe the next lesson, it revisited the past skill and then built upon the next one. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay. Got it.
And, sometimes you'll have paper and pencil because it depends on the age group. Like if you're talking 9, 10, 11, 12, you know, what do you always have to have pen and paper for 9, 10, 11, 12? They're kind of a little bit advanced. But if it's 19, 11, 12, and you say we've got all different types of learners in that class, then what do you do? I mean, in that small group, do you have some kids, some students who can't write? Do you have some second language learners? What are you going to do for them so that when they're in group, they can participate, right? Any questions?
I had a question.
Okay.
For the data collection plan under the lesson plan template, is it that to be done only once?
Data collection?
Yeah.
No. That's the only part that I mean, I think that's the bottom part where it says the at the very end, you're not going to do the lessons. That would be if you had completed the lesson itself. And then what was the response? Like, what did you get after that? Yeah. So that's just your review of what you did in that lesson and with that group of students. So that's more so once you're actually doing the lessons at the site. So that's the part that you won't fill out.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other part, I think it says, how would you modify it? You know, could this lesson be for other things? You do want to fill that section out. Right. Okay. Looks like we're just missing one person. And so I'm going to open up the breakout rooms for you. And you can, it's just like last time where you'll be able to